What would happen if you did not allow a child or a toddler to fall as it transitions from a toddling state into a walking state? Each time it fell down, you lifted it up, supported it, brushed off its dust, did not allow it to get bruised, and then helped it along. Doesn't seem very natural, isn't it? In my view, if you don't allow that natural enabling environment, perhaps, and God forbid, joints won't be developed or muscles won't be developed, even bones would turn out a little weak, and it might impact as one grows into adulthood. Or did you hear about that great story, a very old story in which the farmer has a fight with God and says that, hey, each time I get into the farming season, you send these hailstorms and rain and drought and so on and so forth, and each time I have to fight with you to get my crop out. I have 30 years of experience. Why don't you just leave the farm to me and get out of my way? And let me do it my way. So God says, all right, next season I'll allow you. And then this guy says, okay, he does the best to his ability. Farming, water, sowing the seeds and furrowing it and all that. And at the end of the day, he gets a beautiful crop. The cobs are kind of waving in the wind and sunlight, and they're full and everything, and the farmer is very happy. And then he tells God that, you know what, look at that, my experience, and I got this all done, but each time you mess it up. So God says, all right, let's go by your way. So then he gets into the season when they cut the crop, and then the cobs are out, and when he wants to take out the grain from the cobs, he finds it's empty. There's nothing in there. And then he's very surprised. I did everything right. There were no disasters, nothing. I gave it an ideal scenario, but the whole damn thing is empty. There's nothing in there. I've lost my crop again. So that's the secret of the story, right? Nature gives you an enabling environment which has to be natural. Enabling environment has to be natural. You need to take what is given and let it happen so that there's natural progression. So in today's episode, we will talk about enabling environment and how to develop that in a corporate or a work scenario or in an entrepreneurship scenario. So welcome to another episode of Careertainment. Thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing. It's very encouraging for the number of subscribers that we're getting on the channel. I'm thankful that you find it useful, and I appreciate that. So welcome again to another episode of Careertainment, and today we're talking about enabling environment. Now, quite honestly, this word enabling environment is bandied around. It's been around for long. Each one talks, I have an enabling environment. In training sessions, they tell you need to create an enabling environment. What is it? There are many research papers, there are academic papers that I've gone through, and I'm sure most of you have gone through. But what does it really mean in a practical way without all the jargon? I've got some insight into this which I want to share with you. And these are day-to-day practical tips which I think might help you. But before that, let's understand what enabling environment is not, because that's what is fashionable right now. Whenever we talk about enabling environment nowadays, and when I see it around me in a corporate setup, it means bean bags and refrigerator full of beer and access to unlimited expense account and flexi timing and beautiful offices and sofas and colored and music and bands and so on. Everything of this nature is called about enabling environment. I don't entirely agree with it, because this kind of enabling environment is only the superficial aspect. In fact, it sounds very unnatural. It's like giving extra pocket money or a humongous amount of pocket money to a kid without teaching him the value of money. Quite honestly, as we were talking a little while back, a natural family surrounding is the best example of an enabling environment. A mother, in fact. Ever seen how a mother handles her child or a toddler? As she's on the computer or even cooking, or as she's busy and the toddler or the child is playing behind and it falls, magically she's got two eyes behind. And if something happens, she quickly turns around and takes care of that, and then again gets back to her work. That's a fantastic example of an enabling environment. In fact, family is a great example. As you're growing up, I'm sure most of you experienced, your parents gave you that enabling environment. They let you make mistakes, make silly mistakes, and mature along the way till you found your own place and stood on your own feet confidently to take on the world and kind of fly away. That's a natural enabler. Oh, what does it really mean in the practical way? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, do this and make your enabling environment. I think if you know that, it's going to be very useful for you, especially if you're entrepreneurs and leaders. So let's look at that. I have tried out some small, not very big things, but small few steps that I have taken and which have helped me, and I thought I'll share with you in the best way you can create an enabling environment for your organization or in your team. Right? So the first one is to create a strategic objective and deliver it to them. Now, this strategic objective seems a very high-sounding word, and it's often confused with something like a vision, but it's not that. It's much simpler, much more relatable to the business that they are in. For example, if you are in a petroleum or oil company, and if you give to the rig manager something like, towards a globally responsible citizen, you'd be much happy, and you would be more benefited if you give a very relatable kind of a strategic objective. In my view, I don't know whether you've seen that movie, the last scene in that great Maniratna movie where it's a biopic of Dhirubhai Ambani. That last scene in the stadium when he talks to thousands of employees and shareholders in a stadium is, I find, a fantastic example of a clear strategic objective of where the company wants to be. I suggest just watch that clip. Phenomenal, isn't it? A great example of a clearly delivered strategic objective. We want to be the largest company in the world. As simple as that. Understood. That's first. The second one is have a very time-bound operational objective given to your team in terms of what he understands. That helps. Right? Now, what does it mean? For example, I've tried this out. For example, you can say that, you need to focus on generating a revenue at least 10 times the departmental cost that you incur. Or if you're at a lower level, then 10 times your own salary. As simple as that. Or you need to save at least 10 times the money that your departmental cost showcases if you're not in a revenue generating scenario or department. Or as clear as we need to occupy 25% of the shelf space in 20 odd stores around us. Or if you're in an app business, then at least it should be in the top in the real estate of a smartphone in the next 1 month. Very clear, relatable, time-bound operational goal. That's the second one. The third thing, in my view, is to clear the values about how to do the do's and don'ts within your organization. Now, this is a topic of another independent video, but values are very important. What you should do, what is not tolerated, how to talk to women, how to behave in society, bribe, etc., etc. Those do's and don'ts are to be very clearly made out that whatever you do, come what may, these things are not done. Right? So that's the third thing in terms of values. Now comes the operational way of implementing an enabling environment, which comes to, all right, now you know where the company is going, we've told you where you are going, you know what not to do or what to do in terms of your behavior, etc. Now let's understand how will you do it. Now this is an important step, because here what happens is, as leaders, most of us get into that feudal position. Come on, I'll tell you what to do. And that's where it just goes down the drain. When you're discussing operational objectives or options about how to go about getting the task done, it's about asking your team how the task is going to be done, not about telling how it is done. Don't get into that position, all right, now I know, now I'll tell you. That's not enabling environment at all. And remember one thing, when you are asking how it is done, you may perhaps add your own suggestion. All right, this is my suggestion. Make it as democratic as that. This is not the old way, the industry 2.0 or 3.0, where the factory manager told you how to do. Things are very different. You ask and be a part of the team and give your suggestion. And as a leader, the most important thing is, once this is happening, for every suggestion, you need to be, using the old grandmother trick. Very good, very good, very good. Oh, wow, wonderful, beautiful suggestion, great suggestion. That's an old grandmother trick. Again, borrowing from the family, right? You need to keep doing that, whatever the suggestion is. Don't get into a qualitative judgment. Don't be judgmental about that option. That's the fourth thing, right? Ask what are the various options, don't tell. Once that is done, get into the resource allocation. Now, I don't want to get into budgeting and resource allocation, which you will do, but I want to touch upon a very practical aspect of resource allocation, which is budget for downside. This downside budgeting is very important when it comes to providing an enabling environment. What does it mean? You make sure that you put a 5% or 10% budget of failure. If you don't, it's a bonus. If you exceed, even better. But always keep, and people forget, and that's what puts a stress at a later date. And this normally happens in a very directive manner of management. When you say that I need this to be done, if it is not, no, that's not good. Budget for downside. And the second part of this statement is secure the team's downside. Let's face it, as an entrepreneur, the downside is yours. Your team will always be insured about the downside. That's the nature of the game. That's the way it is. You need to ensure that the professional manager's downside is secured. That's just the way it is, right? So secure his downside and budget for the downside. Next comes the most important step. That is, get out of the way. Just get out of the way, because that requires a lot of personal training on your side. There is this whole thing. Some people do it because they've got an anxiety disorder. They keep troubling their team, asking them again and again, hey, what's happening? What's happening? Wrong. Just get out of the way. You've done it. You've budgeted for the downside. If it doesn't happen, so be it. Manage your anxiety separately. Let it happen for the time that you have said that the task will take. And you'll be surprised if this happens. You don't know. You probably might get results which are far, far, far better. Yeah. So that's the next step. Get out of the way. Once that is done, after the task is over, in whichever manner, whether successful completion or unsuccessful completion, now do a variance check as to this is what you had in your mind and this is where it's turned out to be. And here's a very, very important tip. Most of the time, when a variance analysis is done later on how the task was accomplished, whether it was good, bad, or ugly, you tend to then evaluate your team. As leaders, secretly, you need not say this openly, but secretly, that process is about evaluating yourselves. If the variance is too high, and if it is on the bad side, on the negative side, then the problem is yours, not the team's. You did not make the initial goalpost. Talking about goalposts reminds me of a sportsman, right? If a Messi shoots a goal and he misses the top bar and it flies away, the last thing he's going to do is blame the goalpost or the football. He's going to take that back to the coach and say that I hit it like that, it's about me. I probably did not aim correctly. That's just the way it works. You don't blame the goalpost or the ball when you do a variance analysis. You analyze yourselves. Yeah, so that's what you do. You start analyzing your variance. And finally, remember, if you want to do enabling environment, play the entire game, like a sport, in a fun manner. Don't play it like a task to be completed. If you play it in a manner of a game or a sport, having fun, there's half the chance that you'll already achieve it. But if you do it as a task that needs to be accomplished, not happening, right? So let's go over it again. How do you develop a great enabling environment? Practical tips. Start with a great, clear, relatable strategic objective. Give a very time-bound operational goal that they understand with reference to their salary, market share, competition, etc. Third, values, do's and don'ts have to be listed out very clearly that these are not tolerated. This is the floor line. Fourth, about option discussion, about not telling but asking the options of implementation and adding your suggestion to it. 5, budgeting for your resources. The downside budgeting. Remember, budget for downside and secure the downside of your team. That's the way it is. 6, get out of the way. 7, do a variance check with reference to your own abilities and own goal setting, not blaming your team. And finally, play it like a fun game, and you'll make the enabling environment happen inside of your teams and organizations. Till we meet again in another episode, bye for now. Keep watching, liking and sharing the video. Cheers.